All right, hello and welcome to the first official video of Growing Up in the Wilds of Suburbia with your host, Chad Everett Broshears. Now, this is the first official video on this channel. I just built this channel from my private channel or my personal channel, and I will be doing my videos on this for this particular show moving forward. I'll also likely be building the human manual as a show as well. We'll see how that actually turns out in the near future. But for the time being, this is where you'll be finding those videos moving forward. So, as the normal disclaimer, and I'll have the disclaimer put up another time as well, but I'm not here to divert you from any medical advice. I'm not here to give you any type of counsel whatsoever other than speak to you from the philosophy of my education, be the human manual, and all of the living philosophy that involves in that, as well as how I work with my students. So I just hope to create a great deal of insight to get people to find a better and higher quality of life. So I am not displacing any medical advice whatsoever. So if you're sick or in your emergency, don't stop and say, holy shit, I hope I know what Chad's saying right now, or what did he say about that? Go to the doctor. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm also not going to give you any advice to where you go and put your entire life savings on anything. All right, with that being said, I am going to do the why I do not edit my videos episode. Why not do that for number 1 in the series, although you'll see the title is number 20, because this is the 20th video in the episode series of Growing Up in the Wilds of Suburbia. So moving forward, again, like I said, you'll find them here. I'll see about transferring them over if I can figure that out, and as which I will if it's possible. So, all right, why I don't edit my videos is very simple. It's the exact reason why I result to a lengthy conversation with people when they call me intelligent or when they call me very intelligent. I've heard this regularly, and it's not a bragging right for me. I don't own the title. I do not encourage others to call me that. I don't have any of those things in my space as far as my reference to myself in any degree. I only consider myself extremely interested, and I do this for a very tactful reason. I am extremely interested in a lot of things, and I find that even some things that I once found boring are very interesting to me now. I retain on a very high level when I read things because I am very interested in what I'm reading. I spend the time and care about what I'm reading, so I retain a lot, as well as I have certain rules that I abide by that I created. Now, these are rules, not laws. These are rules that I created in order to accelerate my education. One of the first things that I took into consideration is I had to reduce what was bogging down my processor. My processor is the way that you compute your reality and how quickly you can respond to those things that are going on around you, and also how much attention you can give to something and to what degree that attention may be. I devote a great deal of attention to things. So whenever I do anything, I devote as much attention as possible to that. And if I am distracted for some reason, my desire is to complete the distraction, whether it's removing myself from the location in which I'm in. Maybe if I'm in a busy Starbucks or something like that, I may put on classical music on a headset and listen to classical music as I ease my way into the literature or whatever it is that I'm educating myself with or informing myself with. I do not walk around with any degree of purposeful arrogance to any aspect or facet. I really don't wish to be that way with people. I only care to connect predominantly because, like any reader would understand, and I heard this and it resonated very well with me at a young age, that a reader dies 1,000 deaths. That's not to be fearful of, but it more or less means that a reader lives 1,000 lives. So when you're reading something and something actually occurs to you that, hey, what is really cool about this is that I'm experiencing this person's intentions, what they purposely wrote this down, and I feel like I'm a part of the story, and therefore you live vicariously through that literature or whatever it is. In this case, it's a book. We do it all the time with movies. We get involved with it. We romanticize the ideas of what we're watching and then basically try to play that out in our lives to some sort of mimicked degree whenever it's something that really lands for you deeper than, oh, whatever. Most people don't watch movies or TV anymore with whatever. people are finding that they're leveraging harder on what they're watching being meaningful. That's, of course, my opinion on that, but it's also my observations, and we'll open the conversation to that if anyone is interested in, debating or even exploring further what I mean by my observations in that particular area. So I don't edit because I resisted starting a YouTube channel and doing anything with YouTube for, oh, wow, I would say nearly 10 years. Whenever YouTube first hit, I first found myself mildly, because I was 25 at the time, found myself mildly jealous of what I saw other people doing and the ease that they were doing it with. And that I was jealous because I wasn't, and it was more envious than jealous. I couldn't do what they were doing like they were doing, because it looked too easy, or like as if they really, not too easy necessarily, but too well polished, too well practiced, too professional for me. Now, the first video I was watching was just a young man in college with a bunch of his college friends, and they were traveling throughout the country and just having a great time. And I watched it and I thought, wow, this is a really interesting platform. I don't know if I want to put my life out there like that, because I don't want to look like a fool. I don't want to look like I don't know what I'm talking about, or like I'm not as good as I am, or blah, blah, blah. The things that stop you from wanting to take actions. So I lived with that for a while, and then I started to realize with the people that I was interacting with how badly they wanted to continue the conversations and how badly I wanted to continue the conversations. And these people that I was interacting with were international. When I traveled to Europe, there was a lot of people that wanted to figure out a way of staying in touch in the way that they could stay engaged, and then I could stay engaged with them. And I thought, well, I could do something online. I could do, like Facebook came out with the video options and all of that fairly recently. And I thought about that as well. And I chose not to go with it just because I wanted to really create something great deal more meaningful. So I decided finally, after continuous procrastination due to the fear of not doing it perfectly, or a better understanding now is doing it to perfection, I continued to hesitate. And fear continued to get in the way, the unknown and being ridiculed. I open the idea that I'll be ridiculed to the fact that what I'll hear is sometimes there'll be validity to it. Other times it could be that, it could be that it's insecurities bleeding through their teeth for the person, or through their fingertips to the person that has any kind of ridicule for me with this. So I really don't have a lot of hesitation anymore. And I don't edit for that reason as well. I want you to get that this is all possible. This is all very easy to do. It's just get started. This is better than my first videos I did on my phone. I'm actually, setting up myself for it, right? I've actually started creating my own home studio. I've spent a bit of money for it to make sure that it's more professional, and I intend to make better products. Now I'm actually transitioning from this into doing, my online store for my education, the Human Manual. It's all a process. I've sold education before. I am an educator. I'm not one you'll find in normal schools. I have been a guest speaker at some local colleges to where I live, community colleges, off of my holistic education and viewpoints, and I've been asked by teachers to come in and to speak on behalf of a specific type of nutrition, knowing full well that I'm not a nutritionist or a dietitian, nor am I giving nutrition or dietitian advice, but I give a different viewpoint on nutrition. I give an inheritance factor for human beings based through anthropology and what I know about genetics and all of these other things, but I introduce it the same way. I give the disclaimer so that people understand that I'm not there to misplace or to displace their authorities, their medical advisors and people like that, but more to get people interested in starting to learn. So I don't edit just because I want you to get that this is it, man. Just let's get started. Step out of the stadium and onto the field. You have no idea if you're even capable of playing the game when you watch from the stands and you judge others. You'll have your heroes, you'll have your villains when you sit in the stands, but you don't really understand what's going on in the field other than through the eyes of observation, but not at all from how it is to play the game. If you've never played basketball and you sit and you're a basketball fan, you cannot understand what the players go through. You do not know what it's like to really play the game, especially at a professional level. Now, amateurs can kind of grasp what a professional level is like, but there's other things at place that actually affect a professional that an amateur will not experience until they get to that point. So an example of this would be a professional is usually making a great deal of money, and that's their sole business most of the time. And if that's the case, the amateur is not getting paid like a professional. They also likely have a job somewhere else doing something so that they can make their bills. It's not that one's wrong or right. It's that you don't understand what it's like to be the player yet. All right? This is casual frickin' Sunday for me, as you can tell from my other videos. I am not wearing my normal attire. Why? Because this is perfect. I'm a real human being, man. You know, I'm not scripted. I don't do that. I love bikinis. I do. Why not? I was actually judged by my clothing earlier, and I thought it was funny, you know, and it really did nothing as an ad hominem. It had no effect on me. I think it tried to attack me rather than my beliefs, and it just didn't work for the person at all. I actually laughed at it. You know, so if it worked, but if she intended for me to laugh, it worked for her. But to insult me, no, it was the other end. I'm like, you really are grasping and challenged here. I'll be vague about that because that's for another conversation and another time. I actually made a video of it. It was about 30 to 40 minutes long, and it involved a pro-life abortion individual who was basically accosting an entire crowd of people. And I'm not one to sit back when I see ignorance being spread. So you can't have a picture of a fetus and try to play it out like it's a child in the sense that it's a after a child's born kind of situation, or even late trimesters. We don't perform abortions in late trimesters, not in this country, not of any legal perspective. So yeah, this woman was not accurate in her information, and she was doing a lot of quoting, and it was inaccurate. So I stepped in. So I give you an understanding. I'm not the guy who's going to just sit there and be like, somebody should say something. No, I do want to understand people better, but at the same time, I also feel that if somebody's being victimized, truly victimized, not choosing to be victims, but to be oppressed by somebody else, especially in a completely odd place, standing in line at a restaurant of all places, that's where it occurred. So anyway, I digress. And by the way, I won't edit that video if I ever post it. So screw it. Why? You guys, really, let's get into action. And this is how we get into action. So I'll relate, not editing, back to when people tell me I'm, and I've heard this several times in my life, that I'm the smartest person that certain people know. And I stop them quickly, almost as if they've offended me, because in a sense they did. Most people like the idea of being told that. I don't. It feels good to be acknowledged that I have a degree of information. That's fine. I feel fine with that. But what is kind of insulting is I've through observations, I've recognized that people tend to behave as if they're deifying somebody. They're making them a genetic anomaly or something other than what they can do themselves. You're so smart. No, don't say that to me. I mean, I appreciate that you have a perspective or viewpoint that way if you do in fact have that. And I promise you it's not to try to gain more attention. It's really not. If I ever find value when people say that, other than that quick little feeling of, okay, I'm acknowledged, because I come from I'm stupid, right? That's what I used to tell myself as a kid. I was one in 6 boys, and that was the greatest insult my family my brothers could come up with most of the time. And that could hurt me. As a child, I really wanted to be smart. I shed those coils and decided that I just want to be interested. I want to be interested. I wanted to know as much as I can know, and that's my goal. So when people tell me that, I commonly find that they don't want to play the game with me. They don't want to educate themselves, and they write it off as if I'm special. No, I'm experienced in different ways because I've chosen to be experienced in different ways, but I'm not special compared to you. I'm not worse. I'm not any of that. I don't ever see myself as being any less than anyone else, nor more than anyone else. I don't. I only wish to inspire you into your life, only wish to inspire you into areas that you may not know about. That's it. And for you to do the same for me. It's the living example of a book, except a reader can die 1,000 deaths. Somebody with this position can die 1,000,000 deaths or more. Every person that I get to interact with that cares to share their life, and I listen. Oh, do I listen? I become the greatest audience member most of the time. I just care. I want to know what you have to say. I want to know what makes you tick. Everybody has a life story, and if you can shut up and get out of the way long enough and tell them that you are an audience member for them, you care to know about their life, they have a story. Everyone has value. As it's said, and I'm not a fan of quotes, but I do really enjoy Einstein, and I hope that no one who hears this feels that I'm taking him out of context by this, but it's a supporting context for this. And that is, Einstein is reported to have said, and is written to have said, that if you gauge intelligence by the ability to climb a tree, a fish will forever believe that it's stupid. That really landed hard for me when I first heard it, because I felt as if it was something that I myself might have thought or said, because it just made so much sense. But I felt like I was beat to the pun. Somebody else said it before me, but I was so willing to accept it rather than deny it because I was embarrassed that I didn't think of it first, right? No, everybody has amazing, amazing intelligences. I have actually, in my education, the human manual, I've created 8 different areas, or I've identified 8 different areas of maturity, each area with its own derivations. And every one of those areas encompasses all of human beings. So commonly I see people that become praised in a youthful state or a younger state at some point, some way, that has been praised for being funny. And they're constantly being praised for being funny, and their identity adopts being funny, and they deny themselves the development in other areas. Like, one of the drawbacks to being funny that a lot of people that are funny face, and they'll agree with this most of the time, is that it's hard to be taken seriously. And most people think something's wrong when they're not trying to make them laugh. That's a very tight prison cell to live inside of. Because if you can imagine all different experiences of life, and every one of those you have to inject being funny into, it gets hard. I was first identified as being intelligent, and then I was identified as being funny, and then I was identified as being a lot of different things, because I became more of a chameleon, because I really wanted to get to know people, and I didn't want to have a lot of prejudices. I didn't want to separate myself or my groups, especially in high school. I mastered the art of being a chameleon. I wasn't lying or being inauthentic purposefully. Other than I wanted to just get along. I didn't want to walk around and not to be accepted by all these different groups, because my high school was full of cliques. We had the headbangers, we had the skaters, we had the country boys, we had the black kids, right? And the different groups that were with the black kids. And then there was the cheerleaders, and then there was the band kids, and there was all of these different groups. And I really didn't want to just say I'm only with this group, because as I grew up, I liked a lot of these people that chose these other fashionable directions, and I didn't want to not like them because they didn't choose my direction. So I started choosing to be, I dressed a little bit more chameleon-like, so I could dress in like this, right? I could just kind of go to any group. Occasionally I may have wore a band shirt or something, but for the most part, it was the 90s, so it was kind of the thing. A lot of kids wore band shirts, not just we didn't have goth kids back then. Really, we had, headbangers that dressed in black, and we had, skaters that dressed in a lot of different ways. So I was probably looked at as being more like a skater, because I could fit into a lot of groups and not need to be the distinction to one of these other things, like the banger kid or whatever. And I really mastered being a chameleon. And then I started realizing that a lot of people had a lot of prejudices for things that weren't, like, there was nothing there but a fashion statement, or preference of music. And they were making a big deal out of it, and it was harmful to me, in the sense that I just found that people were putting a lot of energy into disliking another person based off of nothing, a fashion or a music desire. And that to me was a lot more upsetting. So I decided not to do that, and I cultivated the skill set of being like a chameleon. And I learned first by the being smart that people don't think smart people are that funny, or at least then at that age, I didn't feel that smart people were all that funny. But funny people seem to get into groups easier. Smart people only got into certain groups, and that was it. So funny people got into different groups. And then I realized that, oh, so now if I'm funny, it's easier to get along with people, and I don't have to have so many arguments or fights. And hey, let's face it, it upped my opportunity for dating. That was awesome. I was cool with that, right? Except I wasn't as physically fit at the time. That came later, whenever I chose that, and I fell into the belief that if I had Sugar Bear, baby, hey, calm down. My dog's name's Sugar Bear. Sorry about the disruption there, but I don't edit, right? Yeah, so I decided that, after being, funny, kind of didn't get me as far, because the guys that were in better shape than me were getting more girlfriends, and I was the guy that all the girls liked to be friends with. And my buddies wanted to be friends with me because I knew a lot of the girls, and it was an easy way of being introduced. And I kept getting caught up in how upset I was that these girls that I had crushes on were dating the guys that were friends with me, that only seemed to be friends with me whenever it was an opportunity to hang out with them, the girls. And then I realized that my friendships were a little bit more shallow than I'd really hoped that they were. And that my chameleon nature was actually more of a hindrance, because I wasn't actually able to develop that kind of close attachment, or that kind of close relationship with these other people, because I wasn't spending that much time with them. The time I spent was quality, but I wasn't there for every conversation, so camaraderie was a little more challenging. I was kind of like cameo of friendships. I'd show up and only do a cameo, but not be a leading role to a lot of friendships. So as you guys may or may not hear the background noise, again, I don't edit. Whenever I actually get to the point in having my own studio, professional studio, you'll hear less of that background distraction. Baby girl, no ma'am. So, okay. So moving on, there was benefits and costs to everything. And then as I continued to mature, I started recognizing a lot of other challenges. It was no longer music choices or, attire, but then belief systems started to really become obvious to me. So I decided that it was time to really start claiming who I was. And I really got to know who I was whenever I got into my 20s, late 20s, actually mid to late 20s. I started discovering me. Sugar Bear, hey, calm down. One moment. All right, there's my moment. As you can see, the fashion faux pas, right? There goes the pleated or the plaid shorts and the green shirt and the brown hat, and oh, you're just such a know-it-all guy, and look at you, you have no fashion sense. Be ashamed of yourself. Yeah, that was the conversation. It was closer to that. Yeah, it was closer to that back earlier today with the woman in the abortion sign and the pro-life sign and all that. Here's the faux pas. There you go. Okay, so I just realized there was a time to take a stance. And I tell you all of this because I want you to understand that you can do anything you want to do, but we have to get started on it, and don't wait. And people will ridicule you. They absolutely will, especially the people that feel that they're closer to being your peer. So the ones that feel like they're closer to your equivalent, or if they feel that they're better than you. You'll start outing some people on certain things, which is fine, because people do have different viewpoints of reality. And I'm not out to make them wrong necessarily, and don't think that I throw in the towel either. I do have a way of defending myself, and I don't mind using it, and ultimately it usually ends up getting people to actually recognize that there's other ways of viewing the world and realities, different paradigms. So I'm telling you all of this stuff because I don't want you to wait to write that book. I don't want you to wait to ask that person to dinner. I don't want you to wait to accept that job interview, right? Don't worry about it. If anything, and I'll tell you that this is one piece that I'll give you as part of my philosophy, and that I actually do have built into some of my educational material, is there is a difference between perfect and perfection. Perfect. You are perfect right now. I don't care what your religious belief is. I don't care what your beliefs of yourself is at all. You're perfect. The premise of perfect in this context and in its truth is that you are the accumulation of all of your life's choices. If you were not perfect by being the consequences of all of your life's choices, then this universe actually would tear the fabric of the universe, and this thing wouldn't be so, because with you reflects the universe in the sense that we're made of space stuff, right? Everything that we have done has absolutely been the conclusions of your decisions. Whether those decisions got to the point that you no longer had control and you did not know better doesn't mean that you're not perfect. You still made that choice. If it's a genetic anomaly, you are still perfect at this stance that it's exactly what your DNA has predicted for you, or as far as what your DNA has created you to be. And then the stress loads that you've chosen, this is the whole purpose of this series, is because we have chosen to develop ourselves in specific ways that has concluded to who we are currently. While you listen to this video, it concluded to who you are right now. Now, you are absolutely perfect. You are not perfection. Perfection is an infection. What that means, in its simplicity, is that perfection is something that you're not. And that's one of the things that people will utilize to get you into action, either to gain power, to clout, or something, or money, or something out of you. It is trying to get you motivated to something else that may not be for your benefit. Now, this does not mean don't create goals. I want to experience all kinds of things. It doesn't mean that I'm done with my life because I'm perfect. It just means that at this point in this stage, by the way, my body is perfect the way it is because this is the way that I developed my body. Now, if I want my body to be larger and more muscular and leaner and body fat, which I don't, by the way, I don't mind a little bit more muscle, and I'm actually programmed to do that right now. I'm working on a program for that because I write programs too on the physical body. I'm a holistic trainer on top of other things, developmental trainer as well. I just train for that. So that's for the experience, but my life will not mean less if I do not achieve that. That just means that I will up my experience levels. Doesn't matter what it is. If I want more money, I will work towards that. And it is perfect for every step of the way, because anytime I make a mistake, I've made that mistake to learn, and I learn from everything. So they're not really mistakes to me. That just means I didn't do it the most effectively, but I did it the most efficiently that I could. And now I'm learning because it did not accumulate to what I thought it should do, like building something. Then I learn while I'm building it that I'm learning that the way that I was doing it was not the most effective, but it was the most efficient to the way I knew how to do it. And then the outcome came up, and I saw that it did not end the way I wanted it to. Now I start considering what I didn't do to come to that conclusion, and what I did do to come to that conclusion, and then I consider what would make it that much more effective. It's not a mistake at this point. And the way that people they encode mistakes, it's not a mistake like that. I just created something. I just developed something. I'm bettering myself towards a more effective way of developing myself. That's Bino, by the way. That's our big boy. He's a sweetheart, but he likes to talk. And he has no inside voice. His voice box is busted. So you see, you are perfect. Now, perfection is, you see a picture of somebody on the Alps. They are this athletic looking, Swedish looking person or whatever, where you just look at them and be like, that person must be wealthy. And they're in some fairly wealthy looking clothing, and it's a white backdrop, white clothing, whatever. And they've got the top of the line skis on their feet, and the top of the line freaking, I forgot what those things are called, but the little, the sticks that the people use. And once I actually get out skiing, I'll be like, oh, there it is. So you see that, right? And you see that they're in shape, and you think to yourself all the things that person is that you are not. and what you're going to have to do to become that. That's perfection, right? To you, you have just established an idea of perfection. That doesn't mean that it's a universal idea of perfection. Perfection is what affects you. But perfect is what you are. Perfection is what affects you, right? It's what makes you want to do something that you did not come up with. You think somebody with $15 billion is perfection, right? That person has some perfection. I want to get me some of that. Then you get lost in la la land and you don't actually take a look at what's so about you and what you don't know about achieving that. And then you don't know how to actually create that as a goal. So you're perfect. Perfection is an infection. It's what gets you to try to get to moving. That's it. All right. So I won't belabor you any further on that. I can do an entire video on it, and I'll likely ask a friend of mine who will be a co-host on the show occasionally. I'll ask him to potentially go into the dialogue on that, as well as free will and a lot of other wonderful things coming very soon. So again, I don't edit for this pace for this reason. It's perfect the way it is. Absolutely. Because it's where I am. It's to the development. It's the level that I've developed myself to at this point. Okay. I'm not the smartest person, you know. Don't put that shit out there. Really don't. And I hopefully didn't make you think that at this point anyway. I hope only to let you know that I'm interested. I am very interested in a lot of things. And I spend my time developing myself in where I'm interested. That's it. That's absolutely it. I didn't come in with some miraculously amazing IQ. I don't really even give a rat's ass about that. When people tell me their IQ level, I'm like, good for you. Whether it's high or low, good for you. All right, what do you do with it? What do you want to do with it? All right, that's it. Mensa exists for a reason. But I don't want to go off and join some, smaller group of people, just so that I can have great conversations. I, by the way, don't think that I'm eligible for Mensa. Whether I am or not, I don't really care. I have people that are friends. I have friends that are members of Mensa, and they're just people, absolutely just people. So I don't edit for these reasons. I also stop people from calling me certain things that would be desirable in other people's eyes. That I just say, don't do that. I am just as capable of this as you are, but you might need to learn a few things in order to get to that. But don't, by all means, don't try to create me or anyone else out of a league of yourself, because that's a self-prison. That's just your own restrictions that you're living into. All right, guys, thank you very much for listening and for watching this video. I hope that it's brought some insight on the subject and why I don't edit, and also how you are perfect and not perfection, and all those other wonderful things. If you do like this video, as always, please share as often as you like. Share it with people via email, bring somebody over, do an intervention. I don't give a damn. Share it on social media. Like it, actually like it. You can subscribe to this channel. You can do that too, and you'll know whenever I have a new video coming out every time. So a little subscription button down there just below the screen, and you can share it. I believe that's going to be up here, at least right now. I don't know what Google's going to do, or I'm sorry, YouTube's going to do in the future, or even Google will do in the future with these. But there's a share button right now. There's a subscription button, all of that. Please share it. All right. If you have a compelling question, I am absolutely open to answering questions. So you can either put it in the comment section or catch me when I'm live, and we will address the question if it is related to the subject, or if I feel that it's important enough to actually address. In the near future, we're going to have some law enforcement officers and district attorneys. I have a district attorney that I've been talking with, and a law enforcement officers that I've been speaking with, to come on to also, get you to understand a bit more about that. We're all people. We just have different walks of life. So with that, we'll explore a little bit more of each one of these walks of life. All right, guys. Thank you so much. Again, this is Growing Up in the Wilds of Suburbia, and this is Chad Everett Brochures. Thanks for joining me, and I look forward to hearing from you guys.